What's up, everybody? Welcome to On West Gray, the monthly podcast about all things local government in the city of Norman. I'm your host, Tiffany Verska, Chief Communications Officer for the city of Norman, and we appreciate you tuning in. Today, we have a pair of guests with us from the Division of Environmental Resilience and Sustainability. We have Michelle Chao, our Environmental Program Supervisor, and Katrina Boteler, Environmental Compliance Specialist for the city of Norman. Ladies, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's good to see you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Absolutely. So today we have you on. You're going to talk with us about fall planning, some different programs and initiatives you have going on, and a bunch of great stuff. So let's get into it. So Ms. Chao, can we start with you? Can you tell us a little bit of background about what you do in your division?
Sure. I oversee a variety of environmental programs. I know we're not supposed to have favorites, but my personal favorite is stormwater. We also oversee fats, oils, and grease, our FOG program. And coming up soon, we're also going to have a cross-connection specialist as well.
Awesome. And in regard to how the roles and responsibilities within your division may relate to planning or vegetation here in Norman, can you educate us a bit on that, Katrina?
Yeah, of course. So I am an environmental compliance specialist, and I do work under Michelle Chao. But vegetation is really key to stormwater management because plants help absorb the rainfall. It reduces erosion and also helps improve water quality by filtering pollutants. So those are a few ways plants can really help stormwater management.
Awesome. I tell everybody since I moved to Norman 3 years ago, I've gotten super green because of the education and outreach and all the incredible stuff that you guys do. I love learning about it. So thank you again for all that you guys do.
Yeah, of course.
So while we're talking about plants, most people think of fall as a time when the plants start to die off or they go dormant, but there's actually quite a few plants from our understanding that do best when they're planted in the fall. So could you tell us a little bit about the importance of taking advantage of the fall planting season?
Yeah, so if you plant in fall, you're really going to get some benefit because you can get some good root development starting before, springtime and when you want to see things starting to bloom. And you kind of talked about or spoken about what type of plants you should be planting in the fall. I know Chao and I spoke about it a little bit earlier today, and it's kind of a little bit late in the season to start planting. Maybe a few weeks prior we should have, where people can or should have started planting, but
like
some
September-ish.
Yeah, like ideally you want to get those plants in the ground about 6 weeks before the first frost, which for us, it's like the end of October, mid-November.
We can hope anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, trust me, I've definitely put plants in the ground this late and they still make it. Yeah. But the general idea is like if you plant in the spring, they're then trying to grow and get established during the summer where it's very hot and sometimes they need, extra water. Whereas if you put them in the ground in the fall, they have all of winter to kind of get those roots developed. So when spring comes around, they're a little bit more established and they have a little bit better start when spring and summer rolls around again.
Okay, good to know. So do you have any plant recommendations when it comes to the fall planting season?
I think we both have our favorites.
So my favorite planting list actually is just Okies for Monarchs. They have a Central Oklahoma plant list specifically for monarch butterflies. It's a super easy guide to look at. It has photos of all the plants and it's organized by bloom season. So if you want to plant for pollinators, you can plant for spring, summer, fall. It's a super easy guide to follow. That's my personal favorite.
I'm just going to put in that black-eyed Susans are my favorite. I think they're really pretty.
Okay. That's awesome. Well, and I think that it may have been briefly mentioned, but you both kind of have a hand in trying to manage Norman's stormwater runoff, essentially, the rainfall that we get. So can you tell us a little bit more about how folks can use rainwater to their advantage when it comes to planting?
One way you can do that is by having a rain barrel, and we do an annual rain barrel sale that will be The webpage is going to be on Upcycle, and it's going to be live of November 1st. And you can buy a rain barrel, a pedestal, even a 275-gallon rain barrel tote if you want to. But that is one way that they can provide a free, sustainable source of water during dry periods, maybe early spring, anytime that it's really dry, even right now when we're kind of in a dry period. And it's also chemical free. You're getting it from your roof, so it's just water, and you're not getting it from the faucet, which could have chlorine potentially. But that's one way you can manage some storm water and also water your plants at the same time.
So the rain barrel's connected to like your gutter,
to your downspout,
right?
Yes.
Okay, very cool.
And even if you don't have gutters installed, if you have a valley in your roof where it comes to a point where water is coming off of your roof, you can put it right underneath that and gather rainwater that way too.
Okay, good to know. I thought it was only for those downspout folks. Awesome. Well, also along the lines of planting, a lot of people use fertilizer when planting, but Norman has a manufactured fertilizer ordinance. What exactly does this mean?
So first, we always recommend that people do a soil test before they do any fertilizer. Sometimes you'll find that your soil doesn't really need extra nitrogen or extra phosphorus. So you can get them for, I think, $10 through OSU Extension, which is in town. And they'll even rent you the equipment. You can just collect a soil sample from your yard, you drop it off, and you'll get your results back in like a week or so. And then they'll give you very specific guidelines on here's how much your yard actually needs. So we definitely recommend that as just a first step before you put anything out on your yard. And also just as a basic guideline for any sort of chemical you're going to apply, we always want to follow the manufacturer's recommendations. So definitely don't try to over apply any fertilizer thinking that, if you put a little extra fertilizer, you'll get a greener grass or anything like that.
We definitely not how that works.
No, unfortunately not. We all wish it would be. We all have perfect looking lawns. So definitely follow what those recommendations say and, avoid applying that fertilizer before it rains or, if your grass is already saturated with water or anything like that. Another thing that we see pretty commonly during the summer is grass clippings. So we don't want to blow those grass clippings into the street or into the storm drain. We want to either keep them on your grass where they can break down and add organic matter to your yard, or you can collect them and compost them, or you can bag them and then just put them at the curb for green waste pickup once a week. So there are a couple of other options. We just want to make sure that the grass clippings and now that it's fall, the leaves don't make it into our storm drains and clog that up.
Right. Understood. So what are some environmentally efficient and sustainable ways that folks can maintain their lawns in the fall?
We had a little slogan this morning about leave the leaves.
Leave the leaves.
Leave the leaves. I like it.
Yeah, so there are actually tons of insects that will overwinter in leaf matter if you leave them in your yard. I know a lot of people these days are kind of wondering about fireflies. Like people say they don't see as many fireflies in their yard or in the parks as they used to. That's because people are collecting all those leaves and getting rid of them. So fireflies and other insects like to lay their leaves and live in that leaf debris over the winter. So if you leave that in your yard or, along your flower beds and leave them through the winter, you'll be able to support that, the wildlife. So that's definitely like my favorite. And also it's easy, right? I am all about less work in the yard. So if you leave those leaves in your yard, it's easier and better for our insect.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I hear you are a fireflies person. I am a lightning bugs person.
Ooh.
Butterfly
Katrina?
Person.
Well, you call them fireflies or lightning bugs?
I call them fireflies.
Okay, got two fireflies people in here. That's fine.
I grew up in the Midwest, so that's what I use.
Well, that's awesome. That's really good to know. I did not know that. So also, this yard by yard program I keep hearing about. What is this? Tell me a little bit about this.
It's through the Conservation Commission, and I actually just got my yard certified this summer, so super excited about that. But essentially, they try to promote some of these more environmentally friendly, sustainable practices that we talk a lot about in Doers. So they have a little bit of a checklist. So they want to make sure that you're conserving water, that you're providing wildlife habitat for birds and insects. They also look at things like edible gardening gardening or like trying to provide food and water sources. So they have a lot of guidance on their website to try to help you guys be a little bit more environmentally friendly in your yards at home. And then if you pass their checklist, they give you a cool little sign. You can put it in your yard, and that's kind of like a conversation starter for your neighbors. If anyone's coming by, you can kind of stop and talk about what you're trying to do in your yard and how it's impacting the environment.
Very cool. So a checklist, I mean, like, do they come out and like inspect, or like,
I wouldn't say
I need
it's
to
an
know more about
inspection.
this.
It's definitely more of like a casual conversation, but they do come and look at your yard, and they'll ask you some questions about what you do. Like, of course, they're going to ask, do you use pesticides or other chemicals in your yard? Hopefully you answer no. So yeah, they'll kind of come and look at your yard, and if you're okay with it, they'll share photos on their social media to try and promote the program and let people see what your yard could look like as opposed to a perfectly green Bermuda monoculture.
Yeah. I did want to add, though, that they just expanded that to do like business by business.
Yep.
And if you're a school, you could do school by school. So there's other opportunities you can do with them as well.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that is awesome. Congratulations. Katrina, are you on the yard by yard?
I am not.
list?
No, I live
Not
in an
yet?
apartment. So
I gotcha.
can't do it just yet.
Okay.
But once
Well,
I get a
I'm gonna
house,
have to get
I will.
on there now.
Exactly.
So we do, you mentioned the once a week green waste pickup. And so we do have that yard waste collection that's turned into quality compost that's available for pickup for Norman folks all year round. I believe that if you load it yourself, it's free. And then it's like $10 a scoop if you want to put it in the back of your pickup truck. But we also encourage, and then we sometimes offer education at the regarding at-home composting. Something new that's come up recently, though, is the food scrap collection program. So could you guys tell me a little bit more about that?
I'm really excited about that because, it's going on in Norman, and we don't have food waste collection yet, except there was at Gray Owl. But now we have another area, and it is located at 3001 East Alameda Street behind the East Side Library. So the food scrap collection program is hosted through Fertile Ground Cooperative. They were awarded a grant through USDA and given by ACOG, which is the Association of Oklahoma Governments. And they were given like 20 possible locations. And they had a big vote, and we voted that we wanted a station here in Norman. And so we worked together and we found the location behind the Eastside Library to be the best, most convenient or most accessible to everybody if possible. But there's also one at Gray Owl as well. But you bring in your food scraps, you can bring meat, dairy, vegetables, anything that's actually food scrap. So we just want to make sure when you do actually get to the compost bins behind the Eastside Library that you make sure you scan the QR code. It'll take you to a quiz, and at that quiz, you'll get not cue cards, I'm sorry. You'll get a combination to open that lock. And then just make sure you put the food scraps in a grocery store brown bag or a bio bag. So it doesn't make the bin messy and dirty. But we are really excited that we have this opportunity. Did you want to chime in, Chao, or anything?
Yeah, I just want to say, definitely not just a regular grocery store bag. We don't want to put like a plastic bag in there.
No,
correct.
Plastic bag.
A grocery store brown bag. Maybe not a plastic brown bag.
No, sorry. When you started with grocery, it made me think grocery bag, and I was like, no.
Yeah,
not a
grocery store
bag.
brown bag. One of those ones that you can recycle.
Yeah,
So.
definitely a great option for our residents, though, because when we talk about composting, we talk a lot about backyard composting. And like Katrina said, that's really not an option for people who live in apartments. And then usually our follow-up is, well, look at vermicomposting. And if you're like me and aren't able to keep worms alive, that's not really a good option either. So this is really good for people who maybe don't have a yard or they don't want to mess with having like a worm bin or anything like that. They just take that quiz, you get that combination, and you can just drop your food waste in there and you're good to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not the level of green yet where I would like to mess with worms. So
Well,
that is a great option for
if
me.
If you come
Start
by
small.
our offices, we actually have a worm bin there. So
Yeah, we do have a
them.
worm. We have a worm bin, and we also have a compost bin. So if you want to bring any of your compost,
Okay, and that's over at the Development Center, folks.
yes,
Live worms.
Awesome. Well, as we wrap up here, I know your division does a ton of events, cleanups and different workshops and that sort of thing. Can you tell us what events folks might have to look forward to as we enter the fall or winter season?
Sure. I just want to do a shameless plug, though, because we actually had one yesterday. We had a lot of volunteers. Mostly it was a partnership with Norman and Norman North Student Council. We had 82 volunteers collect 440 pounds of trash out at Ruby Grant. So it was pretty incredible.
440 pounds.
Yes. Yeah. And like half of a deer skeleton. It was pretty cool.
It was pretty awesome.
What does 440 pounds even look like?
Oh, man. A dumpster? Like a dumpster size full?
The size of this
like
area.
The desk that we're sitting at might be like 6 by 4. I don't know. It was a little bit bigger than that.
Well, I love the Keep Norman Neat initiative that you all have where folks can, whether it's 1 or 2 or 20 or 30 folks, I mean, they can just sign up conveniently online, give you 2 days notice, and the city supplies all of the cleanup gloves and bags and everything you'd need, the trash picker-uppers, and then we will actually come and pick up any waste, right?
Exactly.
And so I love that. So if folks just go to our website, type in Keep Norman Neat, they can find all of the information on that program.
Yeah. And you said what kind of events we have. I'll talk a little bit about it. We have the Norman E-Waste event coming up on November 9th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Reeves Park. We do have a cleanup event hosted at the Colonial Commons. And it'll be a garden planting as well. And that'll be on October 26th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m.
We're working with OU Little Event and Red Dirt Collective and also Sierra Club to sort of revamp the existing edible gardenscape that they have there at Colonial Commons and also expand it to include a pollinator garden. It's 9 to noon, and Sierra Club is actually going to provide us lunch. So they'll have pizza there around noon. If anybody wants to join us, it should be fun. We also have our Lake Thunderbird workshop and cleanup on October 27th from 1 to 4. It'll be at the Lake Thunderbird Boathouse. We'll have speakers from Wild Care and Conservation Commission talking about the different wildlife you can find out at the lake and also how different soil practices can affect water quality and stormwater infiltration. So that'll also be a pretty informative event, I think. And then in November, we have a 2-part foraging workshop. So we have a field portion out at Saxon Park on November 10th from 1 to 3, where Sarah Bondi, who is also one of our ECAB members, is going to teach us about different types of edible food that we could find out at parks here in Norman. And then we will have a second part on November 17th at the Well. And we're going to talk about, once you've collected all these different foodstuffs, how do you actually process it and preserve it so that you can eat it at home?
That is a very unique educational experience. I might have to go to that. That sounds amazing. Awesome. Well, is there anything else that you ladies would like to share with our listeners?
Thank you for having us, Tiffany. It was awesome.
Absolutely. Thanks for being with us. And thank you all for all of the hard work that you do. Everything in environmental sustainability is so important. So we appreciate you greatly.
Yeah, thank you.
Questions or commentary about On West Gray can be sent into publicaffairs@normanok.gov. Shouts to our producer and editor, Mr. Bryce Holland of the City of Norman Communications Office. Until next time, stay engaged, stay informed, and always remember to cast your ballot. I'm Tiffany Verska. Thank you for joining us on West Gray.